Welcome to the Growth Series podcast, where we explore how AI is reshaping industries and accelerating innovation. I'm your host, Josh Jackson. At Red Letter AI, we help businesses scale revenue, generate consistent and predictable leads, and streamline sales systems so it feels like you have a sales army. We believe in the marketing strategy of benefit selling and high tech meets high touch and the perfect combination of AI and HI. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, you're in the right place. Growth consultation, type the word growth in the comments below. Well, today, my guest is Joe Forgét, founder and chief momentum maker at Igniting Momentum. Joe helps leadership teams align people and process so growth becomes sustainable, not accidental. After more than 30 years of leading organizations as CEO, president, and COO, he now coaches leaders to build healthier companies with purpose, clarity, and accountability. His approach combines proven systems with the human side of leadership, turning alignment into real, measurable momentum. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me today.
Well, for the listeners who don't know who you are, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about you and tell us about Igniting Momentum. What is it you do and who do you typically work with?
Sure. Well, I'm Joe Forgét. As you mentioned, I am the founder of Igniting Momentum, a leadership team coaching practice. And really, if I was to talk about myself, I'd start with I'm the father of two amazing daughters. And so first and foremost, they are what fuels me, what drives me. But, if we reflect back just briefly, historically, how did I get here? 10 years, large publicly traded consumer electronics company, 10 years operating a marketing company. We did consumer packaging. Myself and two business partners started that, grew that, and had a lot of fun doing that. And 10 years in the last, in more of that mid-sized business. Most recently president, COO before founding Igniting Momentum. And so love working with leadership teams and helping them through transitions like scaling, mergers, acquisitions, or founders preparing to exit and really building businesses that are scalable and saleable.
I love it. So it sounds like you obviously have a lot of experience and you've worked with a lot of leadership teams of all shapes and sizes. What's the common thread that you see between the ones that end up winning long-term and the ones that don't?
It's mindset for sure, right? You can't get better if you're not willing to grow, open to learning new things, being held accountable. Even coaches need coaches, right? And so, having that Tiger Woods mindset of being the best in the world and firing your coach and hiring a new one to get better so you can go from good to great. So, it starts with mindset. The other side of it is, clarity and alignment drive things, vulnerability-based trust so that people can be clear and aligned on the strategy and push it forward. And so probably the common thread with leadership teams is, most people want to see things succeed, but maybe they're not all on the same page. And that's really what we help them do, is get aligned and push forward with a unified vision and strategy.
Okay. Okay. So, since you've led organizations for decades, what's changed the most about leadership today compared to when you got started?
It's a great question. Well, for the first time in history, we have 5 generations in the workforce at once. So traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And so when I first started, I was a young Gen Xer, starting my career, and we were driven differently, right? We kind of grew up in the mindset of work hard and prove your worth and capable, and you'll see growth. And Gen Z is a little bit more driven by why are we doing what we're doing? What's the purpose behind the organization? What's in it for me? And I don't mean that in a nasty way, what's in it for me, but I know I've had it happen in interviews, and I know a lot of leaders that have it happen in interviews that they're being interviewed by the candidate saying, why would I come work for you? And that's a very different mindset than it was earlier in my career. And so now more than ever, under really being clear on the organization's purpose of why we exist, where are we going, how are we going to make an impact on the world, and what are we deeply passionate about? It's more important today than it's ever been.
Yeah. And I like that you said, what's in it for me. And I think so many times people take that as a negative connotation when it's reality. Okay. And it's in marketing, it's in sales. It's, as you know, like nobody cares about your product or your service, or your features, or your functions. They care about how it's going to affect them and the benefit that they're going to get, and then the pain is going to be taken away. Right. So
Hmm.
the what's in it for me, I think it's very common. It's what everybody thinks. And I think it's okay to talk about, because as a company, that's what you want to do. Like, what's the benefit that I'm going to give you, and why should you work with me? And I it kind of leads me to, like, the misconceptions of leadership, like talking about misconception.
Yeah.
If you could fix one misconception about leaders and growth, what would it be?
Uh, Well, just staying on topic with that, what's in it for me? I mean, ultimately, is the role a healthy fit for the individual? Is the organization a healthy fit for the individual? And the more clear you get on the purpose and the culture that you want inside your organization, you may have some people self-select out and say, hey, this isn't for me. And that's okay, because you're actually helping them out. Why would you want somebody to stay with you for the next 2 years and maybe pass up their, primo opportunity out there that does resonate with their why? Versus having somebody that's in that seat that believes in the vision, they believe in the destination, and they're really making that impact, and they're happy, right? And I mean, so from that perspective, really looking at things as healthy fit, and that the seat is a good, putting people in their strength zone of what, you know, they could be great at, especially if they're culturally aligned with the organization and they want to be there, then having them in the right seat where they can contribute the most and it fuels them, that's what leadership, especially as different seats inside organizations, managers, directors, VPs, it's really about how do I put people in their strength zone and give them the best chance for success.
Yeah, gosh, if a company can get that right, they they will grow for sure. So I want to hear more about igniting momentum and what it is you guys do. And if I'm a company, I'm a CEO, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm listening to you talk, how would I know that you're the person that I should be talking to? Like, what's going on in their business where I would be like, hey, I need this in my company.
Well, as I mentioned, I like, we work with people going through transitions. So ultimately, organizations that are scaling, maybe hitting that first, growth ceiling, or hitting a ceiling of, hey, what we've been doing isn't working the way it was, and it's time to kind of iterate. But going through transitions like that, mergers, acquisitions, blending teams together, company A and company B merging together, how do we create and recast the vision of company C that's this aligned vision that takes the strengths of both organizations and those A players from the leadership teams and builds a new healthy culture and vision strategy for the combined entity. And so that's the type of scenarios where I'm working with leaders and leadership teams. And honestly, a lot of times people are building themselves. They left, you know, working for somebody to start a business and say, hey, I'm going to make more money, have flexibility, I'm gonna have more fun. And then they get into it and they realize that they kind of created a job for themselves because now they're working way more than they used to. They're in it. Um, and the business kind of owns them. So when they're ready to actually take that hat and rise up at 30,000 feet and say, how can I build an asset that works for me? And kind of take a step back and really move from founder led to leadership team led to a self-operating entity, then it becomes scalable and saleable. And so that's the type of clients
Man,
we
you're
work.
you're talking to me, my younger self, and I want to start a business, and somehow I became the CEO and the janitor, and I have a very expensive job now, right? And what you're talking about also reminds me of what John C. Maxwell he talks about, and he and he teaches is replace yourself, right?
Hmm.
Replace
Hmm.
yourself, and so that someone else is doing your job, and that way you can work in your business, or you can work on your business, not in your business.
Yeah,
I love what you're saying here. I would love to maybe boil it down just a little bit more and go granular. I would love to hear, like, if you have any case studies of where a company, like what was going on with a company, what did you do, and then where are they at now?
sure. I mean, what comes to mind, fresh to mind, only because I working pretty closely with them still, was, met a CEO that really was looking at driving the business forward. They actually had someone come to them with an LOI, and and it didn't go through as planned, and to get back re-engaged in that business and restructure things and drive it forward and grow that team. And so, working with them has been very rewarding. One of my things is I talk to people about achieve the ROI on why you do what you do, why you started the business, why are you going through the merger or the acquisition. And ultimately my why is working with teams and seeing the transformation that happens in that session room of how they come in day one and how they leave, that day or 2 days later, the relationships, the clarity, the alignment, their interactions. It's just, that's a very powerful thing. And so, we're still working together and team continues to grow. And, as teams grow and get healthier in their dynamic, they're able to take on more and tackle more. And so, it's an ongoing process, but ultimately, it allows in this situation the CEO to get a little more re-engaged in their business and start working on it again, and kind of pushing things forward with different clarity and passion and drive. So yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. So what's exciting for you? Talking about excitement, talking about scaling, like in your business right now, what's the most exciting thing that how do I say this? What are you most excited about in your business today, and what does scaling look like for you over the next 12 months?
That's a great question. Let's see. What am I most excited about? I think for me, I've been having a lot of conversations. It's interesting. We're in Q4, so I think it's a time of year where business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs really enjoy talking about, hey, what's our annual planning look like? What are we going to do next year? So it seems to be having a lot of really great conversations right now. But and uh, ultimately, speaking to a lot of good people that are looking to you know, scale their business. And ultimately we grow through bringing in, working with partner clients to help them grow. So ultimately, looking forward to 2026 and the continued growth there. And then what do I need to do to scale my business? I mean, ultimately, just continue to work with people and prove the value. And with that value comes, referrals, relationships, opportunities to take on new challenges and opportunities and continue to grow. Yeah.
I love it. We talked before this podcast, and in the podcast, I've heard a couple words a couple times. I've heard growth and alignment, and I would love to know, what does that mean to you in your business, and then how do you teach that to other CEOs and business leaders?
Yeah. For me, growth means many things, right? I actually worked at an organization where one of our core values was grow or die mentality. And I remember having conversations where, that was something I really took to heart. And so, growth isn't just about, revenue growth, income growth. Growth is about becoming better and each day getting better. And so, I happen to love reading, an avid reader, especially I love reading physical books, but audiobooks on long drives, great way to, make 2 hours feel like 10 minutes, right? And so that growth mindset of just looking at things differently and learning new things and it, the more companies I work with, the more experience I have in my career, the more and you're listening to different books and different leaders, and it connects dots that maybe didn't exist, or you wouldn't have made that connection 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so I really try and approach my life in that growth mindset, and in terms of alignment, I mean, igniting momentum's a small business, so it's not the same as what alignment might mean in a 300-person organization with a 6-person leadership team, where it's very, very important to have that. But ultimately, one thing I do know is what good clients are for us, and who we can help the most. And so staying aligned on that, and not wanting to be everything to everybody, and really operating in our strength zone. And so while I do coach that and preach that to other business leaders, it's very important we do it ourselves.
Yeah, I love that you said that about growth because I believe the same thing. That's why my podcast is growth always in all ways because growth means more than just revenue. It means how do you be a better person? How do you be a better leader? How do you have a better team? How can you get the most out of your team? Right? There's so many ways you can grow. And, an old adage that I love is, numbers and money follow, they do not lead. So numbers and money are kind of come after you do the right things in the right way. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. And I align with that 100%. So I would love to just ask you two last questions to kind of pay it forward. I would love to know, what is the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
Best piece of business advice. I would probably go with two of them. One is probably a little more personal than business, but it came from one of my business mentors. Some of the best decisions in life were made for me. And it's an interesting phrase, but throughout my life, there's been a lot of times that, you look at something and you see the negative in it versus really taking a step back and seeing the positive in that situation, right? And so sometimes my life has taken a different trajectory that maybe seemed negative in the moment, but turned out to be a tremendous positive. And so I love that phrase. And one of my first, actually, the person that hired me out of college, he was the CFO, COO of the large consumer electronics company, and he and I had a great conversation when I was running my business, and we were sitting down and a few years after I had left that company, and what we talked about was, when you're operating a business, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, the stresses of cash flow and expenses and P&L information, it's all the same. It's just a different number of zeros, right? And so like the same stresses that, an $80 million company has, an $8 million company has, if you're not operating with smart strategic growth and you don't have good visibility into the financials and you don't have healthy cash flow, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're doing $1 million, $10 million, or $100 million. Top line revenue isn't putting profit back to the bottom line. We're not succeeding. So I love that.
That's awesome. Great advice. And then lastly, or second to last, is what would you tell, if you could talk to your 15-year-old self, what would you say to yourself?
Well, that's a funny question. And I only say it because, I grew up in upstate New York and kind of a blue collar family side of things, and wasn't really exposed to a lot of big business in my upbringing, and from my exposure in college and then throughout my career, I've learned so much about things, opportunities that exist in the world that I didn't even know existed. And so I think, remaining open to change and opportunity and understanding that, it goes back to that growth mindset, better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So, really just staying ahead of the game and constantly learning and evolving and growing, and not doing it because you're like, but I didn't get that opportunity. No, it's not about that. It's really, how can I make the best version of myself, and others will see that and I'll eventually apply it somewhere. And so I like to think if I could look back at then and, what I know now and go back then, I might have done some things differently, but ultimately I'd probably go, you're going to be all right. And so, um, yeah.
I love it. That's an easy formula. Success equals preparation. When preparation meets opportunity, that's success.
Yeah, for sure.
It's an easy formula. Not easy to do.
Well, I'm an Eagle Scout, so the motto "Be prepared." It's true. I mean, you need to always be prepared for situations. And that same person that told me about the number of zeros, right? He said to me one time, everybody looks at the best case. Maybe they have a second scenario that could happen. Very few of them are modeling 4 or 5 opportunity, like different scenarios, and how this change could have this impact on the business. And more often than not, the best case scenario is not what happens. And, what we feel is a really great opportunity could really come back to bite us in the rear. Definitely great stuff there.
I love it. Well, lastly, how can people find you? What's the best way if they reach out? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they have more questions?
Well, a couple ways. Ignitingmomentum.com is the website. We actually have a free assessment on there. It's an organizational health assessment to show how ignition ready are you. as an organization. Covers four key areas: purpose, people, process, and performance. So just some good nuggets there. And ultimately, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look for Igniting Momentum or look for Joe Forgét. Spelled like forget. You probably shop at Target versus Target, so pretty easy to find. But yeah, that's for me.
I love it. Well, I appreciate your time. I love this in conversation. I feel like we could talk for a lot longer, but
For sure.
thanks for being a guest, and we'll probably have you on again at some point. I want to hear more
Well,
about this.
thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. And thanks for having me on here today on the Growth Always podcast. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
All right, man. Thank you. Have a great day.